Hello. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is looking at relationships between our models and trying to create those. We're going to be doing a one-to-many relationship as an example, but I'm going to dive straight in because it's going to get tricky. This is a tricky one. So this is the same application I've been doing for all these tutorials. So we have a Pokemon, and that's about it. We've got a factory that creates lots of realistic looking Pokemons randomly using Faker. So we're seeding it, and if you remember, we define all our parameters for our Pokemon in our migration. So what I want to do is I want to set up the situation where we have trainers, and every trainer has lots of Pokemon, but every Pokemon has just one trainer. So first, we're going to have to create the trainer model. So this will be a nice recap. So we can use Artisan to create that. So make model trainer, and then -m is an option to make it create the migration as well, because obviously we need that to define the data. So we can see now we have the trainer model here, and we have the trainers table migration. The only thing I'm going to add to this is a string, which is going to be name. So a trainer is just going to have a name for now, a name, and then a list of all the Pokemon that is his or hers. So we also need a seeder, so let's do that. So make seeder trainer table seeder. That's right. So that will create the seeder file for us, which is already done. So we've got now this seeder function that we can use, and then we're going to make a factory because we're going to use Faker again. So trainer factory, and we're saying this is for the model trainer. Okay, cool. So the factory, that was really quick. So we've got all our files now. So we've got our factory. So let's do this. Let's think about this in order. So what I think the first thing we'll do is we'll write the code for seeding some trainers, because we're going to need some trainers to then attach our Pokemon to. So let's do that first. So we've said this name is what we want. So we can do our trainer factory first. So our trainer factory, we've just got we've added the name here to the trainer model. So we just need to add something here to Faker to generate the name, and we can copy that straight from our Pokemon factory because it's exactly the same. So, and that's fine, and that's all we'll need to do there. We then need to. So if we go to, you'll do this a lot. So we've already done it for the Pokemon one. So we can kind of copy this pattern. Just checking. Yeah, we've got the namespace there, so that's fine. So we now need our trainer seeder. So we want to put in here that we are going to use trainer. And we're just going to create 5 trainers, and we'll have where's our Pokemon seeder? Let's do 100 Pokemon, so we can get a good set of Pokemon for each trainer. So that's done. So at the moment, I could run this, and we would have some trainers. We'd have 5 trainers and 100 Pokemon, and that would be fine. Apart from the thing I forgot last time, which was we need to add a call here to the trainer table. Okay, so this is the database seeder function. So everything here is if we don't tell it to run this as part of seeding, it's not going to actually seed those trainers. And we're going to have to think about the order we're doing this in a second. Right. So now we want to create the relationship. And there's 2 things we're going to do. The first thing is we're going to create, much like when we added things like name and health points, we need to add a reference, kind of a foreign key. So you've got to think you've got two parts. You've got to set up the relationship in the database, and then you need methods to actually get those relationships back. So we're going to start by thinking about the database. And because we're going to have one trainer for every Pokemon, and each trainer is going to have multiple Pokemon, we need to add a trainer ID to the Pokemon. So let's go to the Pokemon table seeder. So we're going to add this here. So I'm going to add a new column to my database. So table, and this is going to be our trainer ID. It's going to be a big integer, and it's going to be trainer ID, and it's going to be unsigned. So this matches then for our trainers table, it'll match the bigger increments here. So next we need to add we need to add some conditions. We need to tell the database like that this is a foreign key, essentially. So let's go table foreign. So trainer ID, and we're going to tell it it references ID on the table trainers. This is so basically this. So we're saying we're referencing this ID on trainers. I'm just going to make sure I got that right. So trainer ID references ID on trainers. And then we can, so we could leave it there and just tell it that, but we need to add some integrity conditions, because what happens if we delete things and we say that we could end up having entries in our database that have that don't have like data integrity, because if we delete one thing and it's referencing something else, we want that to cascade. So we can add these cascade conditions here. So on delete and on update, the changes cascade throughout the relationships. Okay, so it's important to include that to make sure that we always have valid data in our database. So okay, so pretty much that sorts out the kind of table. So the relationships will exist there. One thing we do need to think about is when we're doing our migration. At the moment, the order that the migrations happen in are based on these dates on the migration files. So that because we created the Pokemon table first, when we created the Pokemon model first, it's going to run that first, but we don't want that. Because the Pokemon references the trainer table, so we need the trainer table to exist before we run this migration. So we want the trainer table to exist first. We need to change this date, so it is made before this. So I'm going to rename this file, and the Pokemon table was on the 6th or 7th. So I'm going to do this 06. So that should now, there we go. So that will now run. The trainers table will now run before, and then the trainer ID, the trainers table will exist, so this condition can be set up. If you don't do that, you'll get an error, and it just won't work. So our database is set up. The next thing we need to do is we need to create some methods in our models that we can then use, essentially eloquent methods that then we can use to grab these relationships. So we'll want to say, okay, if this is my trainer, I want to get hold of all the Pokemon that this trainer, that belong to this trainer. So to do that, we set up methods in our actual model classes. So let's do that. So let's start with the Pokemon. We'll do the trainer one first. It probably makes more sense. So go to our model, open up the trainer. and we're going to add a model, add a method. So a public function Pokemon. I'm going to make this plural because we're going to get Pokemons, and we'll see. I might have to change this. Hopefully this should work. Pokemon is a difficult example because Pokemon and Pokemons are both correct. So normally what you would do, you'll see in a minute. So if I do this first, so return this has many, and then we say app that's Pokemon. So we're saying basically we're defining this function, so we can kind of call it whatever we want, but like convention is that if you're expecting multiple models, you add an S on the end because it's plural. And then this is a function this is a method that is part of an eloquent model, has many, so it's just has many app Pokemon. And because we have named because we followed the convention and we named this trainer ID, it will be looking for that link. So it's important that you follow the conventions that Laravel expects you to follow, and that's how these methods here will work. They'll look for those. You can set your own links and your own methods, but that can be quite difficult. But there's sometimes you have to do it. You can do it. Just read the documentation. Now we want to set up the inverse relationship now, so that we can get a trainer from a Pokemon. So let's go to our Pokemon class, and similar again. So we're going to have a public function trainer, and then it's going to be return. So we're going to return this, and then we want belongs to, because remember this is the Pokemon model, app.trainer. So we're saying the function belongs to app trainer, so it knows to look for trainer ID in this model and then find that trainer. So yeah, like this is quite a lot that we're setting up here. So rewind and watch again to follow all the steps. Okay, so we could then run our migrations. In fact, I'm kind of tempted to do that just to check this is working. So we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to call a function PHP artisan migrate fresh. Now what that will do is that will kill the database, delete it, refresh it, go through the migrations, and then run the seeding. So we've got an error. Trainer ID doesn't have a default value. Okay. Oh, okay. Right. So that is because in our seeding function, if we go to Pokemon, where is it? We want the Pokemon factory. We haven't set an ID here, so let's set the trainer ID. I'm just going to set it to 1. And that, what's that? So integrity cannot add up foreign key constraint. So what I forgot to do here is, I'm just going to undo this. Right, okay. Is that I changed the order for the database migrations, but I forgot to change the order for the database seeder. So I need to seed the table, the the trainer table first. So what this error was saying is that it couldn't. There was an integrity. There was a violation. It couldn't represent. It couldn't reference this trainer because there was no trainers in there. So I'm going to run this again. There we go. Okay, so now if I go on to Tinker, Artisan Tinker, and then we're going to do, let's do the animals, because they're Pokemon, because they all have, so use Pokemon. So now what I can do is I can Pokemon get, and that gets all our 100 Pokemon. We can see we've got trainer ID 1. So let's do get for, get the first one, and then we should be able to do trainer. So get first, and then trainer. I think is a function as well. Okay, so that's, there we go. Okay, I don't have to do the so there we now have we get the trainer. So that's the ID 1, which is correct. Now what we can also do is we can do trainer Pokemon, and then we get a list of all the Pokemons. Okay, so at the moment that trainer's got all the Pokemon. So that's not a very good seed. Our seeding is it works, but it's not great there. So we're gonna improve our factory now. So let's go to our we need our trainer factory. Okay, so we're going to do this in our Pokemon factory. So at the moment we've got trainer ID is to 1, so they're all giving, they're all going to the first person. Whereas actually what we want, ideally, is we want this to be a random trainer. So what we can do is, instead of giving it a single value, we can actually write some PHP here. So we can write app trainer in random order. So we're randomizing the order, and then we're just getting the first trainer and then getting the ID. And so that's what that will do, is just randomly assign a trainer ID to this trainer ID, and we're good. So let's run the migration again. See if this works. Nope. So why is it not working now? Use of undefined constant ID. Oh, I forgot that. Okay. The right arrow thing. There we go. It's worked now. So let's go to Tinker. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my trainers instead. So trainer, use app trainer. So let's do trainer. Get the first. Oh, I keep forgetting this. Okay, so that's the first trainer. So now we want to get that trainer's Pokemon. So we do first Pokemons, and we get a list of Pokemon. So they are all the Pokemon and it's a collection. So we have a list of Pokemon. So we can do things like Pokemon's 1, and that gets the first one, second one, and the third one. And we could also then kind of like go loop around and say, okay, what's this Pokemon's trainer? We get Granville. So was Granville the right trainer? Yeah. So there we go. So now we have a setup there. We've got a bunch of, all our Pokemons have trainers. So we could even actually, we could go app.pokemon. We want to use app dot Pokemon. And then we can get a random. What I want to do now is actually kind of use this to show that we've got different Pokemon for everything. So we can now do Pokemon in random order first, and then trainer. So Elijah. So we're randomly getting a Pokemon. So I can show you that we're getting a different Pokemon every time. You can see the trainer IDs are changing. And then we can get that relationship. So we can then get the trainer. We could even then get the trainer and get the trainer's Pokemon. So that's the random, that trainer has that many. And I think there's a function, probably count. So we can see like some trainers have like 20, but on average they have like 19 or 20, which makes sense because we had 100 Pokemon and 5 trainers. So there you go. So that's a basic one-to-many relationship. There was a lot in there, so I would recommend kind of watching it a couple of times. Hopefully those mistakes are actually helpful because you'll probably come across those mistakes and now you've seen them. Yeah, so probably I'll do another video on many-to-many relationships because that's a bit more tricky because you've got to make a pivot table. But otherwise, one-to-one is another relationship that's it's very similar to one-to-many. I would say it's a bit easier. The documentation is very good, so make sure to check that out. Thanks for watching.